Hey, y'all. Thanks for tuning back into Fishing for Men. In the room, I have with me
Spencer,
Cody,
Brandon.
and this is Billy. Thanks for tuning back in, y'all. Today, we're concluding our series on purpose. I hope the series has been encouraging for y'all. Today, we're really going to get down to the heart of it. And so far, we've talked about loving God, what that looks like with our heart, our soul, our mind, and our strength. And then we've also talked about what it looks like to view our work as a mission field. And today, we're honing in on what am I really doing here? Which is an interesting question to ask. I don't know if anybody's ever asked themselves that, but maybe I pose that to the group. Have you ever thought about that question? What the heck am I even doing
That's like when my mind just kind of goes like numb
Yeah.
and blank and I
Yeah.
space out.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I ask a version of it that's more like performative, like, am I doing enough?
Sure.
Maybe not what am I doing here, because I don't know that I'm that deep of a thinker. But I think I've, in some ways, kind of questioned that, but not as directly. Typically, it's, am I doing enough?
Absolutely. I think this question usually comes out when something happens in life, whether it's like a big life event, an age turning, something like it's always, it feels like that's what it's tied to, unless you're just way ahead of the curve and you want to dig into it now. What got me thinking through this question is this quote from Dr. Neil Frank. He said, "The great tragedy in this world is that many of us have not taken the time to understand what living life is all about." This is just a fascinating quote because a couple weeks ago, we had talked about, if we don't take the time to figure out what life is all about, this question will find us, like I just mentioned. And so it usually comes to get us if we don't proactively go seek it out. And some of this is just, going to figure it out, going to explore things, experiences. But it's a journey. It's not something that you like sit down one afternoon for an hour and like, all right, I think I got it. I know I'm here. Like this is,
There it is.
That's just, that's so easy. How did I not know that?
Gotta tell everybody about
Yeah, like if you have that answer, please let us know. We think we have a pretty good answer here on the episode today. But the other thing that's interesting, it could change. Like seasons could change, your purpose could change in that season. Right now, one of the pieces of our purpose in our family is fostering. So we're foster parents, something we started back in February of this year. And so it's been, actually it's the last year. Oh my gosh, it's almost been a year. Yeah. Whew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So it's almost been a year.
Wow.
But that's part of the piece of the purpose. And so it changes. But at the heart of it, I think there's two different callings. There's a very general one that all Christians have. There's a purpose for all of us. And then there's a unique one. There's a specific one that God has planned out for each and every person to go live out. And we don't actually, we typically don't stumble upon the specific one just kind of on our own. Usually it comes through living out the general purpose. And as you live that out, your specific one starts to take shape. And so what are y'all's thoughts on calling, purpose? What exploration have you done so far? Just curious.
What's the difference between those two, calling and purpose?
I've kind of lumped them together
Okay.
just to be clear.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Some people call it calling, some people call it purpose. Unless you see that, do you see them differently?
I don't know. That's my good way
Hey,
to
got
turn
me
it back
thinking
on.
now.
Thought you were gonna come with some like deep insights, Brandon, like back to Genesis or something.
We'll get to that later.
I feel like I've done stuff like I have surface level, like trying to uncover this quickly. Like a previous church I went to, they did this big thing where everybody took the spiritual gifts assessment, and you got to do that. And I was like, cool. And I was hoping that would just like be that hammer over the head moment, like, there's my path, there's
Got
the
it.
calling and purpose. But it's like, no, it's just here's what it is. But then it's up to you to kind of explore how that's supposed to live out in your life. And that's probably where the ball stopped rolling
Sure.
for me. It's just like, here it is. Pray about it. Figure out what it's supposed to look like. I don't know that I've gone deeper into that. My calling and purpose has always been my professional career, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's
Sure.
kind of what I've connected a big piece of it to.
It could be part of that. Like
Yeah.
God's given you those skills to be in the job that you're at today.
Yeah.
For sure. So you're telling me from that class they didn't lay out all the steps just to go do all these? There you go.
I need to paint my numbers.
Wait, how long ago was that? How long
Ring
ago
the bell
was
at
that
the end,
class? And like, how long? You still don't.
Good job shaming him. There we go.
It is. I mean, it is an interesting question. It's a really deep question, and I think I think there's a little bit of fear that probably lies behind that question, because as Christians, usually that's going to be something that comes from God. I know for myself, I don't know that I always want to listen to what God asks me to go do. It can be scary, and we see that in the Bible. Many of the prophets felt the same way, where they were scared because that calling that they had on their life was
They're not asked to
not
do easy things.
not exactly just roses and rainbows as they go into
Go
it.
tell everyone they're messed up and they're going to be your slaves.
Yeah. So as we kind of jump into this, I really obviously want to start with Jesus. I think that's a wonderful example that we can go start with. So let's take a look at where his ministry began and what was he coming here to do. God sent him here for a specific purpose. And in Matthew 4:17, it says, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near." When I think about Jesus coming, I would, we try to go out and be like, hey, whoever it is that doesn't know Jesus, please, know Jesus because he died for your sins and you go to heaven. Like, short version, that's kind of what we've all been taught. But that isn't what he says.
I always just thought that like that meant that he was saving them from Rome. So
Yeah.
like, how do you apply that to your life? Like, what does that mean for you and me today? I don't know.
Yeah. I think, we'll tie it into the Lord's Prayer a little bit later. But yeah, what is that? What do you what do each of us, what are we supposed to repent from and turn towards the kingdom that is supposedly, according to Jesus, near? So, yes, he's coming to fulfill Scripture. Yes, he's coming to fulfill God's plan and many of the prophecies that were all talked about in the Old Testament. And obviously, the death and resurrection is sort of the critical part of our faith. And I don't want to take anything away from that because it's massive. It's what everything hinges on. What I do want to do is kind of zoom out to the bigger picture, because Jesus coming to earth is like a massive deal. Yeah. It's God on earth. It's God in flesh. Like, what? Like, just think about that. The God who created the universe, who can move mountains with words, who can do anything, came into a body and walked on the earth for 30 some odd years. That just hurts my brain a little to think about that.
But I think I've heard it so much since I was a little kid. Like, I'm just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Jesus died on the cross. Cool.
That's a good point, Brandon.
We become so normalized to it.
It's good to kind of take pause, like you're saying, and be like,
holy crap. Like, it's.
Do you think that's a form of, like, in our minds we defile it, we make it less holy because we just like become desensitized to it and we forget to hold it in such high regard?
Or do we take advantage of it to do what we want and then be like, Jesus died on the cross?
Or both.
Yes.
I think most of us don't start off intentionally doing that.
Yeah,
No.
But it becomes that, very easily.
But if you go to church, most places are going to talk about that sort of at the end of the service, like, the altar call or whatever you want to sort of frame it as. But they usually try to weave the gospel into the church. They're like, so you hear this every week. If your church meets on Wednesday nights, I know some do. My mom would go to Wednesday night service. I'd go to students. I heard it twice a week. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes so, in air quotes, normal.
It does. I will say one thing, though, that I've had this conversation a lot with my wife. There is something to the story of the cross.
For sure.
Like there's a power behind it. I don't know what it is. Like, it's a story I've heard many times, which I just got done saying it's so normal. But I was thinking about it. When I hear worship songs that like kind of tell the story of Jesus, like very simplified, those will hit me really hard. And I'll sit there and be like, but I know this story. Why is this hitting me so hard? And all I can say, the only conclusion I can come to is it's like, there's power in the story of the cross.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it reminds me that I don't have to make it fancy or cool to other people. Like,
Sure.
just sharing it. It has its own power.
No, I don't remember what it's called. I'll have to see if I can go look it up and find it. But there was a worship song that we sang in our church, and it was about the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me break down every single time I heard it, no matter how many times I heard it. Like, it always got me. And I need to go figure out which one it is, because that one was, but it was a simple message about the cross and what it represented. And it, man, rocked my world every time.
Sorry, got us off track.
Yeah. Detour, but a good one. And so, Jesus is coming from heaven to earth, but he's coming to show us how to live. He's coming to show us what the fullest, truest example of what a human was and is, and how they should live their life. He was literally bringing heaven down to earth. He was bringing what that life looks like and what we can actually have the opportunity to have now.
Yeah, and I think it brings up an interesting concept. I heard this probably a year or two ago, and it just kind of rocked my view on some things, this passage in particular. I always viewed like we live on earth. After we die, we'll go to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And they're separate. Like it's up out there somewhere, you know what I mean? But I don't think that was the view of the biblical authors. It wasn't the view of the Israelites in the Old Testament. They viewed them as like there was an overlap,
Mm-hmm.
and that you could experience heaven here and now.
Sure.
Like it wasn't something you had to wait for death to experience. I think it's just good to call that out because it helps provide some context to what we're talking about, like how you could bring heaven to earth, right?
Sure. Yeah, and that's a great point, because it's not something that you have to wait for. It's not like, I just have to drudge it out for the next however many years here on earth, and then I get to heaven. There's actually a really good book on this by John Ortberg called Eternity is Now in Session. So go check it out. It's a pretty quick read, but it's really, really good.
Yeah, but I don't want to brush past that. Like,
No.
Take some time, pause the episode if you need
Sure.
to, and think about it. I remember over this past Christmas, I was visiting my dad up in Oregon, and I just threw that out there, and he just gave me this look, and so I slowed down and like explained it, and he still just gave me this look. So I get it. Like,
It's a deep, it's a very like big question, thought, exploration time.
most of us in this room have heard that concept before, have had time to wrestle with it. So we're like, and just throw it out there. But
Sure. But that's one of the things I love about the God that we worship. He came down to meet us where we are, and he didn't just preach a bunch of messages and say, go figure it out. He showed us how to do it. He even said, come, follow me. I'm going to show you how to do it. You're going to watch me. Then I'm going to teach you how to do it. And then you're actually going to go do it. And so that was the gospel that Jesus was here for, to go around, to preach to all the people that there was a new king, him, and a new kingdom that was available to everybody. Not just the Jews, not just the people who were religious, but to every single person that would come to say, yes, I want to follow him. So how the heck do we do that? So the first one is detaching from the world. And that one is, I think, difficult in our time. It's everywhere. It's constantly in our face. And many of us have heard that phrase, be in the world, not of the world. If you haven't heard that phrase, it's one I feel like it's kind of passed around the church quite a bit. Just, you can be here, but not of it. And you're like, well, how the heck do you do that? That's difficult.
Right. Just can't fly away to a mountaintop. And
Yeah. Yeah, that's not, it doesn't mean like just avoid everybody. That's really difficult.
Still got to live here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, 1 John 2:15 says, do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not with him. We might live here, but our purpose isn't found in the things we accumulate, the money we build up, the 401ks and the retirements that we're after, the job title, the fancy truck or car or boat or house or whatever your thing is, that's not where our purpose is found. It can be taken from us in an instant, but it is found in heavenly things. And so we're supposed to swim against the current, live in a different way. That's going to be hard because, like I said, it's in our face every day. The way of culture, the way of the world, to go do these things, to conform to the way that they want us to live. And Colossians 3:2 says, set your minds on the things above, not on earthly things. So, question for y'all, is this the default of your mind, heavenly things? If not, like, what is the
For sure
default?
not.
No.
It's not my default.
Yeah, but isn't that like, is that default possible?
Yes.
I think it's a lifelong journey.
Sure.
Neuroscience will tell you it is. If you
Neuroplasticity.
Yeah, like legitimately.
Got to rewire those connectors.
Impossible.
You can't. I think that my problem is I land somewhere on the rich young ruler scale where it's not a mind thing. I know what to do. It's a heart thing. It's, will you do it? And that's where I think that's kind of I'm trying to rewire the default of my mind. Like that's what I think God's trying to work in me right now. But I am still like I still have too tight of a fist on
Sure.
the earthly things. That's hard to.
But God, you don't know. I need to provide for these things.
Yeah, because my identity and purpose was wrapped up in those
Yeah.
things for 30 plus years. So now it's like, but I don't know. I did pretty good with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, me and Katie are wrestling with that right now. And what's really funny is, I think I told you this.
That's Brandon.
No, that's Brandon. Sorry, Brandon's right across the table from me. I've been asking God, like, what's the next step I need to take, and he just kept telling me patience, and I'm like, for what?
That's not a step.
ready to go now.
What are you talking about?
Well, then about 2 weeks ago, that just switched to prepare, and I'm like, again, for what? But what's funny is Katie's going through a Bible study right now, and she read this thing that stuck out to her, and it said, I'm preparing you for the things. And I'm like, for what?
Give me chill.
And so it's like, where should my mind be focused? Because my mind is wrapped up in if you're about to rock my world, do you have all my, like, do these things still work out?
Yeah.
Because what if they don't?
I think a common theme between what I'm hearing both Billy and Spencer saying, tell me if I'm wrong, is control.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We want to know
Exactly.
so that we can start
Sure.
preparing.
Doesn't
We
have
can
to be this,
start.
but am I still going to be comfortable? Same level of comfort? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the total like westernized, like I'll sacrifice as long as I know you're going to keep me comfortable, which doesn't
Sure.
work out.
Yeah. Yeah, which is interesting. Like, that's a whole rabbit hole of like sacrifice. Like,
Yeah.
is it really sacrifice if you're comfortable?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I don't- we're not ready for that one yet. We'll peg that as a future topic.
We'll keep trucking along here. So, but it's not just about knowledge of these things. Like you said, Spencer, like, you know what to do. I think we all in this room, we know what to do. Many of the people listening, you probably know what to do, but it's the doing them that is hard. And I think whenever you start to get to that place where your default is slowly changing into those earthly things, the mind starts to flow out into action. And we begin to live differently. But at the end of the day, we have the ability to work through a lot of this. John Mark Comer called this idea of holy uncertainty. That sounds like a strange term.
I don't like the word uncertainty. Just gonna throw that out.
But the whole
how I
concept,
feel.
basic concept of it is that we're so tight-fisted with our plans that it then controls our emotions. And so when those plans bust or blow up or don't go the way that we want them because God had a different plan, we crumble. And our emotions go crazy. Brandon's turning his head.
Listeners, if you're feeling attacked, do not pause. Don't you leave us.
And so
I'd like to run from the room right now.
He's talking about how do
from the
you
door.
how do you
Dang it.
how do you have these plans but hold them with an open hand.
Yeah.
To where, hey God, this is what I think it is. This is where I'm headed. But I also want to be open to where you might change this and shift it
Yeah.
to where it doesn't affect my state, my emotions, all that kind of thing. So
Which if you have the right mindset, you can actually be kind of exhilarated by the uncertain.
yeah,
Mm.
what's that
Live
like?
A little bit of that.
Do you sound like you got a secret to share with us.
Do you have some
and the
knowledge there,
listeners.
Cody? Some wisdom for the listeners.
I came across this quote this week. It's from a guy named Henry Nguyen, and he's talking about this exact same thing: be in the world without being of the world. And at the very end of it, he says, and he's talking about when we are in the world but not being of it. He says, "What is new is that we no longer experience the many things of this world, people and events, as endless causes for worry, but begin to experience them as the rich variety of ways in which God makes his presence known to us." And it kind of reminded me of what you just said. Like, if we weren't so busy trying to control things and be successful, be comfortable, get approvals from others, and we're just like looking at the world as God's creation, because that's what it is, and saying, what are you going to do today, God?
Yeah.
And how are you going to bring me into it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty sweet.
And help me just
I'm not
say
there.
yes to doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
No objection.
Yeah.
But if you think about that, the disciples who followed Jesus around, they didn't know where the next day was going to be.
Mm-mm.
But they were like, all right, let's go. You think about the people in the wilderness who had to sit in there for 40 years. They were just following a pillar of fire and a cloud. They didn't know it.
Right.
If they would have looked up and looked around, if you watch them, it's actually not that long of a journey. But like they just trusted. Hey, God's there. I'm just going to follow this.
Yeah.
Yeah, they complained a little bit along the way, but
A little bit of idol worship every
Yeah.
once in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
but like they didn't have this plan that they were like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to cross this city. Then we're going to jump over the river.
Yeah.
We're going to build a wall, and then we're going to be there. Like,
Okay, let's go.
yeah, all right, cool. We have a plan. Let's go. They're like, God, just take us where you're going to take us. And you're like, I don't know how to get to that. It's still a journey to get to, but man, I can always like that. Just sounds so freeing, to be honest. Like that's the word that comes to mind. Like just this weight lifted off. Like I don't have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, like Billy and I have been talking, like God's been pulling on my heart to go do something completely different work-wise.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first worry I told you about in doing it? I don't know if you remember.
Oh, the control.
Well, money.
Oh, money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Will I have enough to provide?
We'll have enough to provide. How am
Yeah.
I going to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff as the stakes get higher for, as men, like you feel like your identity's wrapped up in so many of those things.
Yeah.
And when I say that, because I brought up money, I'm not saying that it's bad to want to be responsible and take care of your
Right.
family. Like you could go the opposite extreme and be reckless and just go do random things and bounce off the wall. But when you have that conviction and know very clearly that God's calling you to do something,
Yeah.
I want the plan that you just talked about, Billy.
I know.
Right?
Me too. Yeah. And I think there's, as you become disciples, there's this ability to develop this holy uncertainty because at the end of the day, we are happy in God, and that's enough. And
I feel like
as
a little
vulnerability,
itty
I'm
bitty
not
baby
there
Christian
yet.
right now.
Oh, let's move on to point 2.
Is this gonna help me feel any better?
I don't know. We'll see. The second one's following Jesus. And this word follow, I feel, has been quite twisted in our culture today because we are all looking for, and this is like maybe not us in the room because I don't think most of us are on social media all too much, but like this idea of following people on social media. How many followers do you have?
Mm-hmm.
That's where it has gone. The world was taken by storm by social media. I have all these followers, but it's distorted our view of an understanding of what it actually means to follow somebody. In our day and age, all you got to do is click a button. Boop, I'm following. But are you? Are you following them? Are you following their every move? Or are you just following the highlight reel of their life? or even following them at all. It essentially means I just get to view you from a distance, stay up to date with what's going on. That's awesome. I don't have to look at what I don't like,
Right.
but I do look at what I do and what appeases me. You don't even have to be in the presence of that person to follow.
No wonder we're having trouble with this.
We're set up to.
You're in control of everything. You can unfollow them whenever you want. You get mad, unfollow. Like it doesn't really invoke any sort of change.
Ooh, you don't have to spend any time with them.
No, none at all.
And it, quite honestly, it's not that it doesn't evoke change. I think it can lots of times make you feel dissatisfied with your life.
Sure.
Oh yeah, negative change. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
And I don't think that's what Jesus did.
No.
I don't think that's what it is after.
Yeah.
It's like what does it mean to follow? Like think about that for a little while. Again, maybe an opportunity to pause the episode and be like, what does it mean to follow? The etymology of the word is to accompany, especially as a disciple, to move in the same direction, follow after, pursue, move behind in the same direction. Also, it means to obey, to conform to, act in accordance with, or apply oneself to as a practice, trade, or calling. That one seems a lot more personal than clicking a button.
Requires action.
Participated, yeah.
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 That's a good word.
Yep. And so let's
You've always got all the good words over there. I love Spencer.
Participative.
I don't know if I could enunciate that one well enough. So Matthew 4, the whole premise of sort of what
It's our
the
verse.
idea of the podcast.
It's our verse.
Yes. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Come, follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. And at once they left their nets and they followed him.
Do we have the sound effects down yet? I really want the casting
We'll have
sound.
to add that in after. Yeah, but I didn't put that on a button.
I mean, if we have to go out on the boat and I'll throw a few casts and just
Oh,
stick a
yeah,
mic up
record
next
our
to
own,
it
so we
and
don't
fish for a few hours afterwards.
So we don't have to pay royalties on
Yeah,
sound effects.
exactly. Yeah, we'll make our own.
Sounds good.
But what is he asking here? Like, what is he asking Peter and Andrew to do? He says, come, follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people.
He's asking them to leave everything behind, to literally attach themselves to his hip, do
Mhm.
everything that he does,
Yeah.
become like him.
I almost see him saying, hey, you've been fishing, because they were fishermen, out of a boat. Your job is to go catch as many fish as you can and turn them in and get paid, and then you got to pay taxes, roam, all that stuff. You thought your identity was a fisherman because in their culture, that's what they were identified as. You were a fisherman. They hung out in the same place. They were in sort of that sort of, I guess, social community. They were fishermen. He says, no. Come, follow me, and I will give you purpose.
See, and that's funny because when I hear that, like I hear what you said, Brandon, but for me, the first thing that comes up, kind of going back to what you said about control, is I hear him saying, come, trust me first, and then I'll give you purpose.
Yeah.
You know, like
Sure.
that. Because that's what I always struggle with, you know, going back. All of my prayers, like, it's not a knowledge. Going back to that, it's a why don't I trust enough to let go? And so when I hear that, that's I think what he's asking me.
That's how it speaks.
How
Sure.
he's speaking to me. Yeah.
What he doesn't say is, hi, I'm Jesus. I'm the Messiah. I'm going to die on the cross for your sins. Please come follow me so that you can go to heaven.
Yeah.
He says, and he doesn't flip him. He doesn't say, hey, come, I'm going to go show you how to fish for, or he doesn't say, I'm going to show you how to fish for people and then come follow me. He says, no,
Right.
follow me. Let me show you how to do what I do, and then I'm going to teach you how to go do the same thing to other people. And sometimes I think we might get backwards. We jump into let me go do all the things, and then we're feverishly exhausted.
Yeah.
And then we forget that who God is, as Brandon's word of the year, to behold him first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because what's that process? There's that four-step process, like with following or discipleship.
Yeah.
Like, I watched you do it. What?
I can't remember
Yeah.
what it is. but I know
There
what
is
you're talking
that.
about.
Many
Is it I watch you do, you teach, I watch, we do together, and then I do, you watch.
Is it I do, we do, you do? That one?
Yes.
Yeah. Why isn't it coming out? Maybe we need to edit this little snippet.
No, it's okay.
Uh,
But that it's very so. Yeah, I do, we do, or you do, we do, I do.
it moves
I
from
do,
like
do you do what I do?
I do.
I do, you watch to you do, I watch is what
Yeah,
it progresses through. Right?
Yeah, there's the progression of all of that.
Which is what you're saying first, right? You have to observe first.
Sure. So think about that, and maybe not a question we'll answer here, but just again, one to ponder. What does following Jesus look like in your life? So, for point 3, at the end of the day, as Jesus will tell us, our purpose is to bring kingdom to the ends of the earth. But what on earth does that mean? So if we go look at Isaiah 32, and we're going to kind of zoom through this, but I really liked this passage because it's actually titled in the NIV, The Kingdom of Righteousness. I feel like that's a synonym of the kingdom of heaven. That's where righteousness resides. It says, see, a kingdom will reign in righteousness, and rulers will rule with justice. Each one will be like a shelter from the wind and a refuge from the storm, like streams of water in the desert and a shadow of the great rock in a thirsty land. Then the eyes of those who see will no longer be closed, and the ears of those who will hear will listen. The fearful heart will know and understand, and the stammering tongue will be fluent and clear. No longer will the fool be called noble, nor the scoundrel be respected. I'm going to skip the last half of that all the way to verse 8, just because the real pieces that I want to point out here is this sounds a lot like the kingdom that we are waiting for Jesus to come back with. And I think it's a lot of the kingdom that the Israelites and the Hebrews and the Jews are all, they were all waiting. This is the kingdom they were waiting for, where things would be different. Things would change. But in the first verse, it says, there will be a king that will reign in righteousness. He will be in right standing with God and other people. I think we know who that king is. We're told, as we read through the New Testament, Jesus is our king. But I want to draw our attention to the second line. And it says, each one will be like a shelter from the second line of that first verse, and rulers will reign with justice. Each one will be like a shelter from the wind and a refuge from the storm. So there's a king and there's rulers. Who are those rulers? They're going to be a shelter and a refuge for people to hide. Well, if there's a place where people need to hide and there's a shelter, that can't be in heaven. That doesn't exist.
Can I bring up Genesis now?
Go for it.
If Jesus is the king and the rulers, if he's coming to ask us to follow him, I would say it's us, tying it back to Genesis, where God tells Adam and Eve to go multiply and subdue the earth. Like he put Adam and Eve, or more broadly humans, as the rulers over the earth.
Mm-hmm. It tells us to rule over the land of the fish and the seas.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think that's what it is. But yeah, we're like this idea of the kingdom of righteousness, I don't think that's not in heaven. Because there is no wind and rain and storms and bad things that can happen in heaven. That's all gone. So if it's not in heaven, where is it?
I have a question.
Yeah.
'Cause I think this ties into the purpose piece. The word righteousness came up.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
in right standing with God and other people. At least that's how I've come to learn to define it, is I'm in right standing with God and I'm in right standing with people, or I'm treating people the way that God's asked me to.
Yeah, I think Jesus is a model.
Yeah.
Bible Project,
Yeah.
to borrow from them, they talk about that a lot. And I just wanted to call it out because like I'd always heard that word and had some fuzzy like feeling about what it might mean. But I love that definition, to be just in right standing or right relationship with others.
Yeah. And then in verse 3, so there's a king, there's rulers. We think that's us. They're to be a shelter. They're to be a refuge. And there's to be like streams of water in the desert. And then as we get to verse 3, what's the result of that? The eyes of those who see will no longer be closed, and the ears of those who hear will listen. People will start to know who God is. So this kingdom is here. We are the rulers. We are to go care for people that are in need. We're supposed to go out and help them understand who God is, what his character is about. We're to rule with Jesus.
So as we follow him and become more like him, and we go out in the world and interact with people the way that Jesus showed us to, that's bringing kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
That's spreading little bits of light of kingdom around us.
So we're here on earth. We engage with people every day. It's our job to go live that out, to be a refuge for them, to be a shelter for them, whether that be friends at work, people that we cross paths with during the day. But regardless, we still got some work to do, because I don't think this kingdom has arrived yet.
No.
Not in my view of the world. Not here.
Not in American society today.
And so we still have a purpose to go do. There's still plans to be fulfilled.
So
Have you ever thought about that? Like, you have a purpose to fulfill as a part of God's plan. Ooh,
So at the
scares
beginning,
me.
you mentioned, at the beginning, you mentioned kind of like a big general purpose that we all have, and then like maybe a more specific one that God's given us. This is the big
purpose. General one.
The
Yeah.
big general
To
purpose.
bring kingdom.
And basically, the way I'm hearing it, this is my interpretation, is we just go love people
Mm-hmm.
and treat them like good, according to the standard like that Jesus modeled for us, which sounds really easy. You can sum it up in one neat little package, but like, how do you live that out?
Messy. It's messy.
Yeah.
And
We need God to do that
Yes.
for sure.
he, in the Beatitudes, it calls us to be peacemakers. That's not extend peace at all costs so that nobody's angry. That's entering the hard situations and bringing peace in the middle of chaos. That's what we've been asked to do. And I don't know about you, but there's a lot of chaos around me. Like, it's everywhere, but it's messy.
Yeah. That's interesting
Really messy.
because if you're a people pleaser,
Which I know several of us have a struggle with that in the room.
it means entering into conflict when necessary.
Yes.
And if don't care about other people's feelings, it means stepping back. Yeah.
And some people aren't going to like what you got to say, even if it's the right thing to say. And that, for me, is a hard place to be. I don't like people being mad at me. I just don't. But we can't sit around in our comfortable little bubbles. We've got to step out. We've got to go live the life of the kingdom, building relationships, showing the love of God to everyone we come in contact with. I'd encourage you guys to go spend some time reading Matthew 6:9-13, which is the Lord's Prayer. It's, if you want to learn, like Jesus asked, or taught us how to pray there. And I think there's a lot of purpose built into this passage. I won't spend too much time unless you want any thoughts you want to talk about that. I know you have.
I could make this a couple episodes long. We won't go there tonight.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I think we've kind of established there's this big purpose to bring kingdom. There's this kingdom that is now in session. It's not for the future. It's for us now. It's something that we get to step into. And our purpose is to go reveal that kingdom to every single person that we interact with, which is messy and hard. And it's going to take work, and you're going to mess up. People are going to get mad at you. But I think if you keep the love of people at the center, the rest of it will sort of work out. And then refuel through God, like Jesus did. He went, spend some time off to go pray, refuel. God, what do you want me to do? And go back out. Surround himself with a bunch of people that were broken and messy. Go back to God. What do I got to do?
Yeah.
Fill me up. Fill my cup.
I think one really important thing, one shift that happens in this that I've experienced, and I'm not claiming to have this down perfectly at all, but you touched on God and others, and if you noticed, what wasn't in there was yourself. And when we were talking earlier and we were talking about control and all of that, that's largely me focused.
Mm-hmm.
What do I need, or what do I want to be comfortable or have whatever need fulfilled? But like when we are like focused on God and filled with his love, and we're focused on sharing that with others, like your focus becomes outward, and you're no longer trying to reach those people or do something for them to get something in return.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like a natural response. And you just start to go naturally seek people, become curious about them, their lives, what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap this up, any parting thoughts from anybody else in the room?
Today was a rough episode, I'm just going to say, in a good way.
Yeah.
It reminds me of you cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve
Sure.
the earthly kingdom and the righteous kingdom at the same time.
We try to, though, huh?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can't have feet in both.
Yeah. Like the Jean-Claude Van Damme commercial where he's got the legs on the two 18-wheelers. Can't do that.
As soon as they split, you're host. So take some time, reflect on your purpose. Have you gone through that journey already? Do you feel like it's pretty clear for you? And maybe you are there. That's awesome. Maybe you haven't really spent much time thinking about this topic, thinking about why you're really here. Even after taking some time to think about it, spend some time in prayer with God, asking for wisdom on how to live out your purpose. There's a really cool line that I added to the daily prayer that I says, which is, God, show me where you want me to be faithful today. Because at the end of the day, the things of this world will leave us empty and lonely and unfulfilled. Ecclesiastes made that pretty clear. It's all futile and meaningless. Doesn't get much clearer than that.
Everything under the sun.
But we know that when we do the will of the Father, when we detach from the world, disciple to Jesus, and bring kingdom from heaven to earth, we will become who we were made to be and fulfill the purpose that God has for us. God is looking for a partner. That partner's us, so that we can go put the world back together. So simply put, our purpose is follow Jesus with every part of our life and invite those around us to do the same so that kingdom can be brought to earth as it is in heaven. Thanks for listening, y'all. We'll catch you on the next one.